Hey everyone, it's Alex, and I am here with another 90th Academy Awards update video. I'm filming this right after I finished filming my video about the winners for the second Critics' Choice Documentary Awards. But now, this time, this video will be about one of the most exciting categories in the Academy Awards, and that is Best Animated Feature. This is a category that a lot of people are very passionate about every year, and it's always very interesting to see what the contenders are, because there's always a nice mix of the big blockbuster animated films that were huge box office hits and critical hits too, but also there are some smaller animated films which maybe some animation enthusiasts may have heard of, but the general public may have not, but may have also been just as highly critically acclaimed as the big blockbuster animated films. So it's always interesting to see the mix of films that get nominated each year, and I have no doubt that this year will be no different. So about 2 weeks ago, the list of eligible contenders for Best Animated Feature was released. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reveal what those contenders are, as well as talk about some of the smaller, lesser-known animated films and what they're about, in case you decide you want to check them out for yourself. So the way Best Animated Feature works is similar to how most of the other categories work. In order to be eligible, all of the contenders here must have had at least a 1-week run in a theater in Los Angeles. And that theatrical run has to be completed by the end of the year, so December 31st. But how the films are nominated is going to be a little bit different this year. There's always the Animated Film Nominating Committee, which has usually been composed of members of the Short Films and Feature Animation branch. Those two groups are combined into one branch at the Academy rather than have their own separate branches. It's usually the committee's usually comprised of members from that branch, as well as maybe a few volunteers from some of the craft categories, so not a huge pool of people that would get to vote out of all the 7,000 Academy members. But now, starting this year, volunteer invitations have gone out to all 7,500 Academy members, so that way anyone who wants to volunteer to be on the nominating committee, regardless of any branch, can do so as long as they adhere to the requirements of how many movies they must watch and the manner in which they must vote. And this year, 26 films have been declared eligible for this category. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off the list of all the contenders, talk briefly about the big blockbuster ones to give like a little refresher, and then go into detail with the plot summaries of all the smaller animated films, which is something I've done every year since I've started doing these series of videos. So here are the 26 films that will be competing for Best Animated Feature. The Big Bad Fox and Other Tales, Bird Boy, The Forgotten Children, The Boss Baby, The Breadwinner, Captain Underpants, The First Epic Movie, Cars 3, Cinderella the Cat, Coco, Despicable Me 3, The Emoji Movie, Ethel and Ernest, Ferdinand, The Girl Without Hands, In This Corner of the World, The Lego Batman Movie, The Lego Ninjago Movie, Loving Vincent, Mary and the Witch's Flower, Moomins and the Winter Wonderland, My Entire High School Sinking into the Sea, Napping Princess, A Silent Voice, Smurfs, The Lost Village, The Star, Sword Art Online the Movie, Ordinal Scale, Window Horses, The Poetic Persian Epiphany of Rosie Ming. So among the big blockbuster animated films of this year, we of course have the DreamWorks film The Boss Baby. I didn't hate that film as much as others have, but it definitely wasn't a good movie. I thought Alec Baldwin was fine as the Boss Baby, and Miles Bakshi, I believe the actor's name is, who voiced the older brother Tim, he was fine. Jimmy Kimmel and Lisa Kudrow were as the parents, and Steve Buscemi as the villain. What a stupid plot he had. Just, ugh. You know, there are other animated films on here that I hated way more than The Boss Baby, but if The Boss Baby actually gets nominated, I'll be genuinely shocked. It may have made a lot of money at the box office, but definitely isn't worthy of a nomination. Captain Underpants, the first epic movie. Of course, that's an animated adaptation of the Captain Underpants books. I remember those books being very popular when I was in elementary and middle school, but I was never really interested in those books. I never read them, and when I was forced to sit through the trailer in theaters, I was not interested in the movie at all. I thought, oh god, this movie's going to be awful. And surprisingly, most critics have actually liked it, and most people who have seen it have liked it too, because it's got people like Kevin Hart, Thomas Middleditch, and Ed Helms, and Jordan Peele, but I still had no interest in seeing it. I just had other movies on my radar that were more appealing to me. Cars 3 I did see, and it's a nice little film. It's definitely not one of Pixar's best. I personally think the Cars films get a little too much hate from people sometimes. Are they the best Pixar films? No. But are they as bad as some people claim? In my opinion, no. And while I will acknowledge Cars 3 was an improvement over Cars 2, even though I personally like Cars 2, it was certainly a lot better than some of the other animated movies on here, like Despicable Me 3, which I'll talk about in a little bit, The Boss Baby, and certainly the Emoji Movie. Despicable Me 3, that was an okay movie, but it definitely was a downgrade from the first two Despicable Me movies. The Emoji Movie, oh boy. I have a lot of things to say about the Emoji Movie, but I'm going to wait until the end of the year when I make my worst films of 2017 list before I unleash my full rant on that movie. But suffice to say, the Emoji Movie is the worst animated movie I have ever seen. Now, some people might be tempted to say other films like Food Fight or Norm of the North might be worse, but I have never seen those two movies, and I probably never will. But the Emoji Movie, while I expected it to be bad, I honestly didn't think it would be as bad as it actually was. That's all I'll say for now, but just be warned, I will be unleashing full rage against that movie at the end of the year. Ferdinand, that comes out on the same day as Star Wars The Last Jedi. It's the latest Blue Sky Studios film. They're the studio that created the Ice Age movies and also the Peanuts movie. Frankly, Ferdinand doesn't look all that great. The cast doesn't really look all that great because you have John Cena in the titular role and you have Kate McKinnon, Anthony Anderson, and he's usually a good actor if you put him in the right project, Anthony Anderson, Gabriel Iglesias, and I forget who else, but having seen the trailer a couple times, it just looks stupid as hell. It just looks like it was made only for 5-year-olds. It just feels like Blue Sky Studios only put it in its release date to be like, oh, well, you can't see Star Wars The Last Jedi because it's sold out? Then you have no choice but to see our terrible movie. Now, perhaps Ferdinand might be a pleasant surprise, like many people found Captain Underpants to be, but I don't know. The Lego Batman movie, that was really, really good. Definitely one of the best animated films of the year so far. Will Arnett was once again awesome as Batman, and all the other characters like Michael Cera as Robin, Ralph Fiennes as Alfred, and Rosario Dawson as Barbara Gordon, they were fantastic. And Zach Galifianakis as the Joker, let me tell you, he was certainly way better than Jared Leto in Suicide Squad, that's for sure. The Lego Ninjago movie, it was okay. I wouldn't say it's as disappointing as some critics say, but in terms of all the Lego movies, it's definitely the weakest one so far. But the voice cast in this movie is pretty awesome because you have Jackie Chan, Dave Franco, Justin Theroux, and they're all fantastic in the movie. Loving Vincent, now, that's a smaller, independent animated film that I did see. It did come to my art house theater, and that happens to be the first ever full-length oil painting film in which every shot of the film is basically an oil painting come to life, because I guess they filmed the movie in live action at first, but then reconfigured each frame as if it were an oil painting. So as a result, because of that, it's eligible to compete here. It's really good. I wouldn't say it's the absolute best animated film of the year, but if you just want to see a new animation technique, or if you're a fan of Vincent van Gogh like myself, or if you want a movie with a really great cast, then Loving Vincent is definitely a film to check out. Obviously, based on the title, and I just mentioned Vincent van Gogh, it's a film about Vincent van Gogh. It's not necessarily a biopic of his life, but rather an examination of him after he died, because the movie is set entirely after his death, in which this postman makes his son deliver this letter written by Van Gogh to his brother, but since the brother's dead as well, he tries to find any other person who knew Vincent van Gogh so he can give them the letter. It's got a really great cast like Chris O'Dowd, Douglas Booth, Saoirse Ronan, Eleanor Tomlinson, Helen McCrory. Really great cast. And Smurfs: The Lost Village, I did not bother seeing that at all. I've never been into the Smurfs. I've never seen the live-action movies with Neil Patrick Harris, and from what I've been told, there's really no need for me to see them because apparently they're just awful. And this film didn't receive great reviews from critics either. It sure has an interesting cast, like Demi Lovato, Mandy Patinkin, Julia Roberts, and Rainn Wilson, but I don't know, I'm too old for the Smurfs, I think. If I'd grown up in the 1980s when the original cartoon was on TV, maybe I'd go see the movie just out of pure nostalgia, or if I had little kids of my own, maybe I might take them to see the movie. But since I didn't grow up in the 80s, and since I don't have any kids, I just stayed away from the movie, and I highly doubt it'll be nominated. And then The Star. That's another film I'm going to be talking about in my worst films list at the end of the year, and frankly, this movie still has too high of a rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It started out by having like a 62% rating, now it's dropped down to a 55%, and while a 55% is still a rotten rating, it's still too high in my opinion, because this film, the concept could have worked with the birth of Jesus being told from a donkey's perspective, but it just doesn't, and I can't say any more because I want to save my frustration for my worst films video. So those are all the blockbuster animated films that are competing this year. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the smaller animated films and read to you guys the plot summary of those films. And I gather these plot summaries off of various websites like IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, and in some cases even the websites of the actual films themselves. Starting off with The Big Bad Fox and Other Tales. Whoever thinks that the countryside is calm and peaceful is mistaken. In it we find especially agitated animals. A fox that thinks it's a chicken, a rabbit that acts like a stork, and a duck who wants to replace Father Christmas. If you want to take a vacation, keep driving past this place. I think this is a French animated film, but this is literally the only plot summary I could find. So, whether it gets nominated or not, I have no idea. Alright, next is Bird Boy: The Forgotten Children. Stranded on an island in a post-apocalyptic world, teenager Dinky and her friends hatch a dangerous plan to escape in the hope of finding a better life. Meanwhile, her old friend Bird Boy has shut himself off from the world, pursued by the police and haunted by demon tormentors. But unbeknownst to anyone, he contains a secret inside him that could change the world forever. The Breadwinner. Parvana is an 11-year-old girl growing up under the Taliban in Afghanistan in 2001. When her father is wrongfully arrested, Parvana cuts off her hair and dresses like a boy in order to support her family. Working alongside her friend Shazia, Parvana discovers a new world of freedom and danger. With undaunted courage, Parvana draws strength from the fantastical stories she invents as she embarks on a quest to find her father and reunite her family. I've heard a lot of great things about The Breadwinner, and I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being nominated at the Golden Globes, the Critics' Choice Awards, and the Oscars, just because of all the praise it's been getting. Cinderella the Cat. Cenerentola struggles to escape the shadow and evil schemes of her stepmother and 6 stepsisters who all live aboard the Mega Ride, a ship stuck in the port of a decaying future Naples. I tried finding another plot summary of Cinderella the Cat that explained everything more coherently, but this was the best I could get. From what I've been able to gather, I think it's a science fiction animated movie. I don't really think this one will be nominated at the Oscars, but you never know. But next is a film I think could stand a chance, and that is Ethel and Ernest. 40 Years of Change, One Enduring Love. Based on the award-winning book by acclaimed British author and illustrator Raymond Briggs, this beautifully hand-drawn animated feature film tells the true story of Raymond's own parents, Ethel and Ernest, two ordinary Londoners living through a period of extraordinary events and immense social change. Heartwarming, humorous, and bittersweet, the film follows the lives of lady's maid Ethel and milkman Ernest from their first chance meeting in 1928 through the birth of their son Raymond in 1934 to their deaths within months of each other in 1971. And this film has a very great voice cast, including Jim Broadbent, Brenda Blethyn, and Luke Treadaway, playing Ernest, Ethel, and Raymond Briggs, respectively. And last time I checked, that film has like a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics who've already seen it, so that could be a big factor in it getting a nomination. Next is The Girl Without Hands. In hard times, a miller sells his daughter to the devil. Protected by her purity, she escapes from the devil who, in revenge, deprives her of her hands. So begins her long journey towards the light, but in spite of her resilience and the new protection of a handsome prince's estate, the devil devises a plan of his own. In This Corner of the World. In This Corner of the World follows a young lady named Suzu Urano, who in 1944 moves to the small town of Kure in Hiroshima to live with her husband's family. Suzu's life is thrown into chaos when her town is bombed during World War II. Her perseverance and courage underpin this heartwarming and inspirational tale of the everyday challenges faced by the Japanese in the midst of a violent, war-torn country. And this happens to be an anime film, which is always very popular with the Oscar voters. There's always at least one anime film that usually gets nominated every year. There's a couple others that I'll be talking about shortly. Next is Mary and the Witch's Flower. Mary and the Witch's Flower centers on an ordinary young girl named Mary, who discovers a flower that grants magical powers, but only for one night. As she is whisked into an exciting new world beyond belief, she must learn to stay true to herself. Now, it's very common with a lot of anime films to have the original Japanese voice cast, as well as an English language voice cast that dubs the dialogue into English for English-speaking audiences. And among the English actors for the dubbed version include Ruby Barnhill from the BFG as the titular Mary, and then also Kate Winslet and Jim Broadbent. So this is another anime film which could possibly be nominated. But next is a non-anime film, and I guess this is part of a franchise, Moomins and the Winter Wonderland. This winter is extraordinary. Moomin Troll decides to stay awake to explore the winter instead of having his winter slumber as usual. Winter is certainly totally different than he had imagined. Strangest creatures wander amidst the snowdrifts, while midwinter darkness surrounds the Moomin Valley. Moreover, an eccentric guest is soon to appear. This guest requires many measures and is called Christmas. Now, apparently there have been many other Moomins films. I have no idea what this is, but I guess it comes from Europe, and I guess it's popular over there. I know a few years ago, if it was last year or the year before, I can't remember, but there was a film eligible to be nominated in this category called Moomins on the Riviera. But all IMDb will say about this film in terms of the cast is that the voice cast includes Bill Skarsgård and Alicia Vikander. They're the only two people listed so far. I don't know if they're the only two characters in the movie or if there's going to be more characters whose voice actors have not been listed yet. I have no idea, and I have strong doubts that this will get nominated because the other Moomins movie didn't get nominated in the past. Next is My Entire High School Sinking into the Sea. Dash and his best friend Asaf are preparing for another year at Tides High School, muckraking on behalf of their widely distributed but little read school newspaper, edited by their friend Verdi. But just when a blossoming relationship between Asaf and Verdi threatens to destroy the boys' friendship, Dash learns of the administration's cover-up that puts all the students in danger. As disaster erupts and the friends race to escape through the roof of the school, they are joined by a popular know-it-all and a lunch lady who is more than meets the eye. And if you're wondering, yes, the title of the film literally applies to the disaster that happens that I just mentioned in the plot, in which their high school literally breaks away from land and floats into the sea where it starts to sink. And this film, despite being an indie film and being an adult-oriented film, because I believe it's rated PG-13, it has a pretty stellar voice cast, such as Jason Schwartzman, Reggie Watts, Maya Rudolph, Lena Dunham, Susan Sarandon, and John Cameron Mitchell. I remember it played at one of my art house theaters way back in the spring, but I sadly did not get a chance to see it. And last time I checked, it had like a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. So maybe this could be one of the indie films that gets nominated. Next up is Napping Princess. The year is 2020, 3 days before the opening of the Tokyo Olympics. While she should be studying for her exams, Kokone Morikawa is often dozing off, stuck between reality and a dream world full of fantastic motorized contraptions. But after her father, a talented but mysterious mechanic, is arrested for stealing technology from a powerful corporation, it's up to Kokone and her childhood friend Morio to save him. Together they realize that Kokone's dream world holds the answers to the mystery behind the stolen tech, and they embark on a journey that traverses dreams and reality, city and country, and past and present. And that is another anime film on this list. Next is a film that I've been hearing a lot of buzz about, and that is A Silent Voice. The story revolves around Shoko Nishimiya, a grade school student who has impaired hearing. She transfers into a new school where she is bullied by her classmates, especially Shoya Ishida. It gets to the point where she transfers to another school, and as a result, Shoya is ostracized and bullied himself, with no friends to speak to and no plans for the future. Years later, he sets himself on a path to redemption. This is an anime that's been getting a lot of praise from critics. Chris Stuckman, a big YouTube movie reviewer, he reviewed this movie and gave it massive praise. So, and since this deals with a very powerful subject for an animated film, or any film for that matter, with bullying, I could see this potentially gaining some Oscar voters' attention because of that, and possibly being nominated as a result. Next is a movie based on an anime series, or rather it's the movie version of an anime series. Sword Art Online the Movie, Ordinal Scale. So it's based off an anime called Sword Art Online. In 2026, a new machine called the Ogma is developed to compete against the Nerve Gear and its successor, the Aimosphere. A next-gen wearable device, the Ogma doesn't have a full dive function like its predecessors. Instead, it uses augmented reality to get players into the game. It is safe, user-friendly, and lets users play while they are conscious, making it an instant hit on the market. The most popular game on the system is Ordinal Scale, aka OS, an ARMMORPG. I don't know what that stands for. Developed exclusively for the Ogma. Asuna and the gang have already been playing OS for a while, and soon Kirito decides to join them. However, they're about to find that Ordinal Scale isn't all fun and games. I don't really watch any anime TV shows, so I know nothing about this. And then the last one, Window Horses, the Poetic Persian Epiphany of Rosie Ming. Rosie Ming, a young Canadian poet, is invited to perform at a poetry festival in Shiraz, Iran, but she'd rather go to Paris. She lives at home with her overprotective Chinese grandparents and has never been anywhere by herself. Once in Iran, she finds herself in the company of poets and Persians who tell her stories that force her to confront her past, the Iranian father she assumed abandoned her, and the nature of poetry itself. And so this film has an all-star voice cast such as Sandra Oh, Shohreh Aghdashloo, and Ellen Page. So if I had to make a guess on what the nominees would be based on trends the Academy has used in the past, I would guess it would probably be The Breadwinner, Coco, the Lego Batman movie, Loving Vincent, and A Silent Voice, because you have there's always at least 2 or 3 blockbuster animated films, an anime film, and one of the smaller independent hand-drawn animated films, and also an animated film which might use a bold animation technique that's rarely used, like stop motion, or in the case of Loving Vincent, oil painting. But given that the Academy is allowing more people to volunteer for the nominating committee, we could possibly see other blockbuster films which maybe weren't as critically acclaimed as these films, but still made a lot of money and were considered at least somewhat good, like Despicable Me 3 or Cars 3 or Captain Underpants. We could see those getting nominated. While I have strong doubts about The Boss Baby getting nominated, maybe some people might passionately vote for it and it could get nominated, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. Ethel in Ernest could possibly be nominated because it's already received critical acclaim from its theatrical run overseas, and I don't know if it's done its theatrical run in Los Angeles yet, but based on the fact that it's more of a serious animated film and there's always at least one of those in the category, there's a good chance that could be nominated. With all the others, I have strong doubts. Perhaps My Entire High School Sinking into the Sea also stands a chance, but other than that, I don't really see what other films will be nominated here, but you never know. We could be pleasantly surprised, and this is always a category I look forward to seeing on Oscar nominations morning. Well, I look forward to every category, but this is one category I always look forward to with a little more interest than some of the others, because you can never truly know what is going to be nominated until you actually see the nominations. But anyway, that's all I have to say about this. Let me know in the comments sections what films you want to see be nominated. If you've seen any of the smaller animated films, be sure to leave a comment about those and whether you liked or hated them. And even with the big blockbuster animated films, let me know in the comments section which ones you loved and which ones you hated. And also subscribe to my channel if you have not yet already done so you can get more of my new videos as soon as they're uploaded. And stay tuned in the near future for 2 videos I have planned involving the Golden Globe Awards. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!